In this video, I'm going to introduce you to software that can be used with the Reaction Plan Manager++ software package. If you're a QC-CALC user, you will really like this application. It's called QC-CALC SQL to Reaction Plan Manager++ Monitor. Its purpose is to monitor QC-CALC's SQL database and send new part measurement data to the Reaction Plan Manager++ software. The software literally plugs directly into QC-CALC's SQL database. It's easy to configure. It uses custom search criteria. Now, what do I mean by custom search criteria? Well, let's say, for example, you've got two machines producing the same part, and for whatever reason, machine A is different than machine B. So clearly, you'll need a different Reaction Plan Manager++ solution for machine A versus machine B. Using the QC-CALC SQL to Reaction Plan Manager++ Monitor software, you can differentiate the two. So even though you're measuring the same part, I can send the data for machine A to the reaction plan for machine A, and I can send the data for machine B to the other solution. The software only works with Microsoft SQL database. QC-CALC has two different databases that you can use. You can use the SQLite, or you can use the Microsoft SQL database. This only works for the Microsoft SQL database. The software runs on the same PC with Reaction Plan Manager++. You can use it in the lab, shop floor, or anywhere that has access to the database. This is an important feature because you can literally plug it in anywhere, point it to the database, configure it, and it'll start working. I'm going to exit this PowerPoint presentation and actually demonstrate the software. You can see I have Reaction Plan Manager++ running here. I've got QC-CALC Real Time running here, and I've got the RPM Training CMM running here. Now, the QC-CALC Real Time could really be running anywhere. It could be running in a lab somewhere. We really don't care where it's running because we're going to be accessing the database directly. So I want to run the QC-CALC SQL to RPM++ monitor application. That's this application here. If I start the application, you'll notice a splash screen appears. And then the application disappears and drops down into the system tray. Here you can see, if I click on this, you can see it's running here in the system tray. Now, it's designed to do that because when it starts running, we want it to be hidden from the operator. It's running, it's doing what it's supposed to do. However, the operator, it's not going to be noticeable to the operator. What I would recommend doing is pinning that to the start folder so that when you start the computer, it automatically starts this application. Now I'm going to go ahead and expand it so you can see what it looks like. You've got a bunch of tabs here at the top. You have messages, QC-CALC file monitoring, settings, and data debug. You have clear messages button down here, auto mode on and auto mode off. By default, auto mode will be turned on. As soon as you start it up, it automatically turns on the auto mode. If I want, I can turn off the auto mode. When I turn it off, it's now no longer monitoring the database. It's not looking for data to pull from the database. Now you'll notice that the settings and the file monitoring windows, these are now selectable, and I can actually make changes to the software. Or I should say, make changes to the configuration. Right now we're only monitoring three different items. We only have three different items we're looking for. Compressor housing op 10 machines 100, 101, 102. Compressor housing op 10 machine 103, 104, and the compressor housing op 20. I can click on the QC-CALC File Monitoring Organizer, and it provides tools to let me pick the different part files to monitor. I can pick a part file and then configure the part file accordingly with regards to how you want to filter the data, things like that, which solution you want to send the data to. I'm not going to mess with that right now. I just want to I just want to show you how the software works. So I'm going to go back to the auto mode on. I'm going to turn that on. And I'm going to start measuring some parts. Let's start by measuring this particular part program. And I'm going to run machine 100. So I'm going to run this particular part program, and it's going to send the data. It's going to send the data from machine 100. So if I inspect the part, this simulates inspecting the part. QC-CALC real time does what it's supposed to do. The database is updated, and Reaction Plan Manager saw the data come across from QC-CALC SQL to RPM++ monitor. The monitor found new data and sent it to RPM. RPM opened up the appropriate solution, compressor housing op10, machines 100, 101, 102, processed the data, and now we have a report. If I measure the part program again, but this time I'm going to measure data from machine 103. You'll notice that now our Reaction Plan Manager received new data from the monitor application. It opened up the compressor housing op10, machine 103 and 104. So we ran the same part program. The data was filtered a little differently by the monitor application and sent it to the appropriate solutions for processing. If I pick another part program that's not in the list and I inspect it, you'll see that the monitor simply ignores it. Let's go ahead and measure the part program, the turning process, which is the compressor housing op20. And for the machine, it really doesn't matter what machine ID I use. I'll inspect the part. Real time does what it's supposed to do, updates the database, the monitor finds the new data, sends it over to RPM. RPM opens up the appropriate solution, processes the data, and now we have the information. In the prior section, you learned how the QC-CALC SQL to Reaction Plan Manager ++ monitor works. In this section, I'm going to show you how to configure the software. Now, I took the liberty of erasing the configuration, so when we start the software, it'll be blank. It'll have a blank configuration. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the QC-CALC SQL to RPM++ monitor, and you'll notice right away you get an error message that says the configuration information is missing. Use a settings page to complete the software setup. So when you start the software, and if it doesn't have a configuration, it'll pop up and it'll give you this message saying, hey, you have to actually configure the software to get it to work. In general, if there are any error messages that occur while the monitor is doing its work, the software will pop up and display the message so that you can react to it. Since we got an error, you'll notice that the auto mode is turned off. The auto monitoring is off. when you start the software, it tries to turn auto monitoring on. Clearly, we don't have the configuration set up, so it can't turn auto monitoring on. So the first thing you got to do is go to the settings page. I'll click on the settings tab. And you have three items that you need to set up. You have the QC-CALC SQL server settings. You have the Reaction Plan Manager ++ settings. And if you want, you can set up a password. The password keeps people out of the software so they can't change the configuration. For the QC-CALC SQL server settings, you need to contact your IT department and work with them to get what the server name is, the database name, and the other properties in this area. Now I know what the settings are for my system, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put those settings in. For this system, I know that we're using the Windows authentication for the user, so I'll just check that. More common is for you to have a special account that the IT department will tell you, and you have to put in the username and password. Now, once you have these settings entered, you can click on Check Connection to see if it's going to work. And the connection to database is confirmed, so we know it's good to go. For the Reaction Plan Manager ++ settings, you need to refer to your Reaction Plan Manager ++ configuration. If you go to the About page, go to Settings, you can see that the Reaction Plan Manager repository is this directory location, and the trigger directory is the same. So we'll go ahead and enter those values here. So for the repository directory, here's the directory path. For the trigger directory, here is the path. You can also start the Reaction Plan Manager ++ when new data is available. If you check this box, the software will look to see if the Reaction Plan Manager ++ application is actually running when new data comes across. If it's not running, it'll go ahead and start it. So this, not only will this feature send the data to the Reaction Plan Manager ++ software, it'll also start it and get it going. If you want to set up a password, you can click on the Setup Password button. You'll see this menu, or I should say this window. Here you can enter your password and save it. And if you want to enable it, you can check this box and it'll enable the password protection. I'm not going to do that now, but if you enable it, it'll hide a bunch of items so that the operator can't get to it. Now that we have all the pieces in place to monitor the QC-CALC database and send data to the Reaction Plan Manager ++ software, we need to make sure that the Reaction Plan Manager ++ software can actually process the data. To do that, go to the Reaction Plan Manager ++, click on the About button, go to Settings, and we know we got the Reaction Plan repository and the trigger directory set up properly. You also need to make sure the default data source is set to the Convert utility, Becker Quality Solution Standard XML. So the monitor application will send the data over to the Reaction Plan Manager ++ in a XML file format, and this is a format that Reaction Plan Manager ++ can interpret and process accordingly. So we're going to click on that, save the settings, and now we know that Reaction Plan Manager can actually process the data accordingly. The next step is to configure the monitoring items. A monitoring item consists of three things: the name of the QCC part file you want to monitor, how you want to filter that data within QC-CALC, and which Reaction Plan Manager++ solution you want to direct the data to. To be able to configure the monitoring items, you have to click on the QCC File Monitoring tab. There you will find a QCC File Monitor Organizer button. If I click on that button, it brings up this window. This window is made up of three sections. The first section will let you identify which part files you want to monitor. The second section, or this area in here, is a list of the monitoring items. And this section on the right side is the edit monitoring item. So you'll click on the monitoring item in the middle, and then it'll let you set up the properties and configure the properties and settings for that particular item. I'm going to pick the RPM++ Write New Solution QC-CALC part file. Then I'm going to choose the Add to Monitor list. By clicking that button, it added a monitoring item in this list. If I click on that item, I can change the properties for this. So first thing I'm going to do is give it a name. I'm going to call this Demo. This name is just an easy way to keep the items organized. The next thing that I want to change is the RPM++ solution name. This is important because this is the name of the solution that it will send the data to. I'm just going to call it Demo. It could be anything. It doesn't have to match the name that you give the monitoring item. The next item is the part file. This is just telling you that you're monitoring the RPM++ Write New Solution part file. I can turn the monitoring on or off by checking or unchecking this box here. The next section will let you add custom search criteria to filter the data inside QC-CALC. Remember, you can set up a filter for your solution inside Reaction Plan Manager++, so you don't necessarily have to fill this out. It just depends on how and where you want to do the filtering. For now, I'm going to leave that alone. So if I say OK to this, you'll see I've got the item here, this monitoring item here on this list. If I click on Auto Monitoring On, that'll turn on the auto monitoring capability, or I should say auto monitoring feature. So now it's monitoring the database. It found data that matches the criteria, the demo criteria, and it sent the data to the Reaction Plan Manager++ software. There was no solution called Demo, so it built one using the Auto Solution Builder. And you'll notice I've got a bunch of parts in there already, and I haven't measured anything. Well, what happens is the first time the monitor finds data and it sends it to a solution, it's going to send the last 30 parts. And now, when it monitors the database, it now knows what it is sent to the solution, and it'll only send new data to the solution. So if I were to measure a part right now, you'll notice I'm only going to get one part added to the solution. Let's go ahead and add a filter inside Reaction Plan Manager. And again, you should know how to do this. If you don't, watch some of the other videos. So I'm going to go to Machine, type in Machine, add the filter, save the solution, go back to the view mode. Now if I measure a part, the data will be filtered, and now you'll only see one part for machine 100. In this example, we're letting the solution do the filtering. So whatever the filter information that comes across through the monitor, it's going to be handled in Reaction Plan Manager++. What if I've got a cell that's producing the same part, and I've got 3 machines in the cell, machines A, B, and C. And let's assume machines A and B are the same and machine C is different. Maybe you purchase machine C later because of production needs, and you use a different vendor which required different tooling and different fixturing. Whatever the case may be, you need a separate solution for machine C versus machine A and B. How do I handle that type of model? I can't really filter that inside the solution. I have to filter the data before it makes it to the solution. Using the custom search criteria inside the monitoring software, you can set up the filter so that you're sending the data from machine A and B to a different solution than you are for machine C. Let's go back to the monitoring software and set up a configuration that will model that type of cell. So I'm going to click on the application, and I'm going to turn the auto monitoring off. Then I'm going to click on the QC-CALC file monitoring organizer. And then I'm going to choose the demo monitor item. Now, for this item, I'm going to set this up so that if they measure this part, the RPM++ write new solution QC-CALC part, and if it's got a filter of, for the machine, if the filter is A or B, I want it to go to the to a solution called demo A and B. So to do that, first of all, I'm going to change the RPM++ solution name. I'm going to change this to demo A and comma B, and I'm going to add a custom search criteria. Now when you click on the add criteria, it will add an item here. You have to fill this out. So I'm going to filter on machine. Now this filter on drop down box will show you the available items you can filter on for the part file. And in this case, I've got a filterable item called machine. Then you have to click on the comparison. What type of comparison do you want? We only support 2 types of comparison. It is either in a list or it is not in a list. Those are your 2 choices. So I'm going to say it is in this list. And I've got 2 items that I want to filter on. And I want it to filter on whether it's an A or a B. If the machine is an A, I want it to go to the solution. If it's a B, I want it to go to the solution. If it's any other filtered item, you know, machine C, machine D, whatever, it'll ignore that and it won't send the data to this particular solution. So I'm going to type in A, comma B. You can hit return here if you want to add your items. It's up to you, or you can use a comma delineation to delineate the criteria. And then if you click on the Save Criteria button, it will it'll update the item so that it now has this criteria assigned to it. So that takes care of this. Let's rename this to A and B so we can keep it straight. I'm going to add another item using the same part file. And this one we're going to call demo C for machine C. And I want to send the data to demo C. And I'm going to add a criteria for this one. I'm going to filter on machine, and I want to use the is-in list comparison. And here I'm just going to say C. Now, if I clicked on add another criteria, it'll add another criteria, and then you'll have to put an and or qualifier on this. So maybe you want it to go to machine C and something else. You can model that. And we're not going to do that. We really don't need that. So I'm going to remove this criteria and just leave is in this list for machine C. Save that. And now I've got two items, monitoring items that are in this list. They're monitoring the same part file. However, it's using different filter criteria to search out the data. And it'll send the data to the appropriate solution. So let's go ahead and say OK to this. And first I'm going to measure a part. I'm going to measure a part using the RPM++ write new solution. I'm going to leave the filter set to 100 and watch what happens. Oh, I got to turn it on. Nothing's going to happen because we're not looking at machine 100. We're only looking at machines A, B, and C. So if I do the same thing and I go to machine A and I inspect the part, it'll find that data, send it to the solution, and filter it accordingly. So now if I were to go ahead into the edit mode and go ahead and set up the filter inside the solution, I really don't need to do this, but I'm going to do this so you can, for clarity reasons. Click on Add, Save, View, inspect another part. You'll see machine A. I'll go to machine B. I'll inspect the part. You'll see machine B. Now watch what happens if I go to machine C. It's going to call up it'll send the data to demo C. Since we don't have a solution for that, it built one. And if I go to the edit mode, go to the data collector, set up this filter, add it, Save the solution, inspect another part, and you'll see the filtering is working. I'll go back to machine B just so you can see it. It'll switch back to the demo BC solution. So it's working as we expect. We are filtering the data and it's sending the data to the different solutions. So that is how you would handle custom search criteria inside the monitoring software, and that's how you can differentiate where the data goes, and it offers a lot of flexibility in how you monitor and handle the data. A few notes about the monitor software. I mentioned earlier that the monitor software is designed to always be running. If you hit the X button here or the exit button down here, the application doesn't exit, it just minimizes to the system tray. If your auto mode is off, if auto monitoring is off and you hit the exit button, it's going to give you this message: turn auto monitoring on, it's recommended. If you say yes, it'll turn the auto monitoring on and drop it down into the system tray. You can see here it's still running. If you really want to exit the software, you have to right click on the button and then click on the exit menu item here. That will stop the application from running. To learn more about the Reaction Plan Manager Plus software solution and other software products, visit our website and check out our help library.